Hello, Father Sheehy, and hello, John. How are you this evening?
Well, good evening to
Oh,
you.
good evening
Very,
to you.
very good. So today is the 6th of January, known in Ireland as Women's Christmas. Traditionally, it marks the end of the Christmas season and is a day that recognizes the work and contribution of women in the home, in the church, and in the wider community. So we're going to be talking today about a Women's Christmas. So my first question is to Father Sean. From a church perspective, Father Sean, what is the significance of January the 6th and how does Women's Christmas connect with the Feast of the Epiphany?
I suppose, well, first of all, the church celebrates the manifestation of God Himself in the person of the infant Jesus. And He manifests Himself not just to Mary, His mother, and to Joseph, His foster father, and to the angels and the shepherds, but also to those from other countries known as the Magi. And here, Jesus is recognized by the Magi, and of course, we know he's recognized by the angels and seen by the shepherds, not just as another baby, but as a very special baby, as the Son of God. And so, Epiphany then marks actually the 12th day of Christmas. And even though the Christmas season officially doesn't end until the following Sunday when we celebrate the baptism of the Lord. Nevertheless, though, it's a very important time. And actually, the Epiphany was celebrated before Christmas was celebrated in the history of the church. So the church celebrated Epiphany a number of years before celebrating Christmas because of what the Epiphany meant to the church, namely the reminder that Jesus was recognized by the Gentile Magi as the King of the Jews. And this is symbolized, of course, by the gift of gold. Was also his divinity and the fact that he's worthy of divine worship is symbolized in the gift of frankincense. And the myrrh symbolizes his suffering and death. So here, in a sense, the Epiphany actually gives us a glimpse into the identity and the mission and the life of Jesus Christ. Now, the Epiphany is a central event in which the church celebrates her faith in Jesus, as I said, and also celebrates her mission. And her mission is to bring Jesus, the God-man, to the world as its only Savior. Also, Jesus, who was born 2,000 years ago, is still present today and manifesting himself in and through his church. And I suppose the whole idea of Women's Christmas then is also a celebration of the service that women have given during the whole preparation for Christmas. And so I'll say more about that later.
Very good, very good. And so, John, what does Women's Christmas mean to you personally? Is it something you grew up with or is it something that you came to appreciate later in life? What's your idea of it?
Yeah, well, obviously we wouldn't be here without women. That's number one.
Very good.
So they have a very important role to play, and a mother is in the home and is the main rearer of the children and the more and what she does to nurture the faith and in the children and that, and is a good guide because children when they're growing up, it's the mother that they're with. And I noticed it even when I'm at mass, for instance, this morning. There was a woman just in front. We were up near the front, and then there was a lady with a little girl, and it was the quietest girl I ever come across during mass. And when the mama was kneeling down, we'd say she bring the little pram up, and when she come in with it, it was covered because it was raining, and but it cleared off there this afternoon around here in Oldcastle. But so women and nurture children and they bring them up. And I have pictures of my mother holding me when I was a baby, meet my grandmother on my father's side. Her mother died relatively young, so she was the only girl, And that's often a bit of a drawback, isn't it? Her mother must have had a problem that nurses are aware of, that some have it, they can have one and then everything else doesn't work. But so she was an only child, and but she did her best in the circumstances, because when you're a woman, you often need other ones to encourage you and give you a bit of assistance, and advice that would have gone through it. So she mightn't have had that a gift, but nonetheless, she did her best, and we owe a great deal to our mothers, and we have to sort of remember that we're in the world because of them, and then we have a chance of saving our immortal souls as a result.
Yeah, it's a very good point there, what you were saying about our mothers. That's goes to the root of it, I suppose. Father Sean, how would you describe the role and contribution of women in the parish life? And my own aunt, my late aunt, she was very, very involved with the church there in Listowel, and she used to bring flowers and do various things in the church. So both past and present, the contribution of women within parish life. What do you have to say about
Well,
that?
I would say right off, like in my own experience, women are probably the backbone of parish life to a large extent.
Wow.
And I'm sure there are reasons for that. But when we put it in perspective, beginning with Mary, Mary was the first parishioner of Jesus, so to speak. Mary was the first person to believe in Jesus. When the angel asked her to conceive him. And so beginning with Mary, women have always been an integral part of evangelizing people to come to know Jesus and to put their trust in him. I mean, during Jesus's public ministry, for example, he was attended, as we know from the scriptures, by a number of women. And he also, we know from the scriptures, he reached out to women in a very special way, especially women who were in trouble or who were in difficulty. And even though Jesus never chose a woman in a leadership position in his church, nevertheless, he called them to use their gift of nurturing to foster the faith in him, in the members of his church, especially in the home, but also in the parish. And I think women have a natural gift, a God-given gift for homemaking. And since the church is God's family, women naturally foster family life in the home, and also they do that in the parish as well. I think parishes are deeply indebted to women in their task of evangelizing, catechizing, and promoting holiness. Because as we know, the home actually is the basic cell of the church. And so the church is only as healthy in proportion to the healthiness of the Catholic families, of the religious families. And so since we refer to the church as our mother, through whom we're reborn as God's children, women, I think, more easily identify with church than men in many ways, despite the fact, of course, that men have a very important and critical role to play, too, in fostering the faith and holiness in the home and the parish, especially in their role as head of the family, in their role of leadership, in their role of protector, defender, and provider for their own family members, but also for the well-being and welfare of the parish. Women bring a very special gift, and that I think is the gift of love, the gift of life, the gift of nurturing, which is actually so essential in parish life. Sadly, today, most parishes have little or no community, and people don't have a sense of community even in their parishes. And I think it's not because the women are not interested or they're not participating, but I think today you don't have that same degree of participation by women, even in the home, even when it comes to handing on the faith to their own children. They're not really as enthusiastic as actually when I was growing up. When I was growing up, my mother, was extremely important because, as I often said, she worked inside and outside, but she was the one actually who kept the family going. Just as I think women in the parish, keep the parish going in many ways. And I think that oftentimes their service is taken for granted. Today's world, of course, means that you have fewer and fewer Catholics participating, so therefore you have fewer and fewer women participating as well. I always believe that women actually are the moral flag holders in the world. I think very often, as the women go, so the home goes, and so the parish goes too, in many ways. I'm not, putting a big burden on women's shoulders, but I think that's the reality.
Okay, very good. John, why do you think this tradition took such a strong hold in Ireland, particularly in rural and local communities? Have you seen
Well,
that?
without a doubt, the Catholic faith had a great part to play in it because churches was packed in my young days, and children were made to, go to mass and confession. We didn't maybe well we weren't forced, but we went because that was expected, and so like they were in the home, they weren't walking outside the home, which a lot are doing now. So the family, the mother that be there when children come home from school and give them something to eat, and if they have any problems, might be able to share them with the mother and get some solid advice. Oftentimes, because when you're going through life, even when you go to school, that's when you're coming up against the various issues that occur in life, and it even could occur in schools. You're going to meet bullies, and you're going to meet maybe teachers that have they're very fond of the stick. If you don't happen to know an answer straight off, and so on and so forth. So, but the mothers was there to sort of be a guide and a help, and they did their best. And but the fact of the matter is that they were in the home, and I'm not saying that we always appreciate it to the full extent that we should, but it was there, and we have the benefit as we've grown up through life and happy memories of it. I have pictures of my mother and her father when they got married, and other little items up in remembrance. And of course, I say prayers for them every day, naturally, for the happy repose of their soul. So these are the gifts. And the father was a good guide as well. I have to say, he was a member of the Garda Síochána. That's what they call him in Irish. They don't call him anything else, which is kind of good. It's kind of Irish, if you like. And this is the background. And unfortunately, with the way the situation has evolved over the years with the Vatican II and so on and so forth, all the changes that come into about, and then the business of encouraging women to be working and not giving the tax breaks to families with children, and to having enough children to replace the population, if you like. And maybe this is why they're letting a lot of people in, but you need to encourage families to be at home, and not to make it a burden that the two of them have to work in order to provide. Because if there's children, then they're not going to have, they might have one or maybe two at the very most. And then they're in creches. I mean, I've seen them all over the place, and book now, and they cost a few quid. So there's all this. So your child is mixing with other ones that's not in the family home, and it can't be doing them that much good, because when they go home, it's nearly time for bed. What about the morning and evening prayers and the family rosary, as Father Patrick Payton, that marvelous rosary priest, the family prays together, stays together. So these are all the factors, and I think the powers that be have policies that don't help families. That the mother can stay in the home, and the tax advantages that should be applicable to married couples having children, and when they have children they get more tax advantages and so on and so forth, as they do in Hungary and some other countries that have something up here between their ears, and they know how to do it, and they don't support abortion in Hungary anyway, or Poland. These are the factors. If we're going to kill babies in abortion, that's a very peculiar way to try and increase families and all the rest of it, and it's a very bad omen. And I think all the rest of it, as Father Sean said, the decline of the mother's role is not good. because their work seems to come more than nothing else, doesn't it?
This is it, you know. Father Sean, I'm just wondering, is Women's Christmas, does it still have relevance today? And what message do they offer to modern society? What message does it give out?
Uh, I don't think it has as much relevance as it used to. You know, I was talking to a woman Sunday, and she was telling me that, you know, when she was young housewife, that Women's Christmas was very important because you know the history of it. It's actually started in Kerry and Cork. You know,
Oh, wow. Okay.
in the rural areas in Kerry and Cork, which is very interesting. And I think the reason it started is because, like, the women in the rural areas, certainly not only I'm sure in those two counties, but in every other county as well, the women that time, you know, especially in the country, you know, they worked inside and outside. I mean, they really worked very hard. They never really complained. And so I think the tradition, you know, of recognizing the work that the women put into creating the home and making the home homey and livable and a safe place and whatnot. I think the whole idea that they deserve to be recognized came about. And then, of course, the Feast of the Epiphany, then, you know, when God manifests himself and shows his love for the world, I guess the tradition arose that, hey, now it's time for the men to give the women a rest. And so the whole idea of Women's Christmas was born, where now the men were supposed to cook for the women and clean up afterwards and so on and so forth. And maybe another reason was, too, that the women, you know, might have said to the men, look, we want you now, you know, to see what it's like, you know, to be a woman and how much work we do, which you take for granted. And then, of course, it kind of transformed into where the women then decided to get together and they were going to go out, you know, and so on. Of course, the pubs latched onto that, and so did the restaurants by offering these special meals and whatnot, you know, for these groups of women. But again, as time went on, you know, I think as the women's role in the home became diminished, especially by feminism, then the whole idea of honoring and recognizing women's service kind of diminished as well. And now I think it has become more of a secular thing than actually really recognizing the service that women make to the world. And that's sad, I think. You know, the whole idea of now is time for us men, you know, to give the women a rest in appreciation for all that they do for us. And so the men now must serve the women and let them see that they do appreciate them. I think it was also an opportunity, too, for women to get together and celebrate their own uniqueness as women, and especially to celebrate the gifts of nurturing and homemaking that God gave them. I think women certainly must be honored for the essential contributions that they make to their own families, and also, of course, to the church family, to the parish family. And they make this unique contribution, which I'm not sure is recognized today, through valuing their own femininity and recognizing that femininity is a precious gift that God gives them. And it gives them the power to conceive new life, both physical and spiritual, especially, and of course also not independently of man, but in collaboration with men who also value their masculinity. And I think the more a woman recognizes her femininity, the more she challenges the man to value his masculinity, and thus bring about a balanced relationship between men and women. Because the role of the man is actually to be the leader, to be the provider, to defend the woman, to protect the woman, and to provide for the woman, and to love the women in their lives. So women also, I think, are natural community builders, but they also need men to collaborate with them. The head and the heart need each other to be balanced. And I think the women are symbolized by the heart and men are symbolized by the head, but both need to work together. because God created man and woman to make sure that neither one is all alone. But I think today it has lost its meaning, because the whole idea of honoring, like John said, not only now are men working outside, but women are working outside as well. And the whole idea is, the whole idea of what women do is kind of taken for granted. I think women's Christmas could be actually revitalized by focusing on femininity, by focusing on the great gifts of life giving, of nurturing, of homemaking, of community building, which I think are more natural to women than to men. But to a large extent today, it's interesting today when you look at pictures, for example, in the media of women celebrating women's Christmas. They're in the bars, with pints of Guinness in front of them and so on and so forth. That's not what it's all about at all. And I think it misses the point.
Very, very good. I know that in my household growing up, women's Christmas was a very big deal because I have four sisters and my mother. And Christmas for me and my big family, it was all about the ladies were preparing everything. I mean, if they were to leave it to me and my brothers, there would be no Christmas. There'd be no shopping, there'd be no dinner. But we did make a big deal of a women's Christmas, and my mother would be looked after, and my sisters would be looked after. So we were kind of traditional in that sense, and it was quite nice, and I liked it. I like the old traditions. I'm kind of conservative like that. John, how do you think we should recognize and value the work women do, both the visible and often the unseen work? As a father, he was saying there that maybe we should, kind of revitalize it, make it more visible again. What do you think?
Well, you're quite right. But you were very fortunate, Oliver, that you had that kind of a family with a mixture of girls, and you were blessed really. And as a big family, a really good sized family, and it gave a great example of what we're talking about. But some of us didn't kind of have that in our background. But we had, in my case, I had the best of aunts and uncles that you could clap an eye on, even from the time I made my first Holy Communion. And after I made my first Holy Communion, I visited them all. And how's your father? And I got funds. And I went back now a nice few years, about 1945. So I wound up with 17 and 6 in my pocket, which was quite a large amount of money. And but of course, I wasn't allowed to hold on to it. I had to fork it up. But be that as it may, it was just the fact of all the aunts and uncles. Now, they're a very important ingredient. You mentioned your Aunt Mary, and she was a great gift, and there was only your father and your aunt on your father's side. So
That's right, yeah.
that was a great gift, and that she was so good to the church. And she was a farmer, but she had a good, strong personality. She called a spade, and you wouldn't want to cross her because I had the pleasure of talking to her and being at the funeral. But suffice to say that you were blessed. But some of us then have, well, our mothers, of course, were very important. Naturally, we wouldn't be here without them. And then the aunts and uncles, we can't forget them because they were a gift, and it come around at Christmas and all the rest of it. And the next thing is to be some kind of a present coming in. They didn't have much in the way of material things them times, but whatever they had, they shared. There was a great deal of camaraderie. Even when I was young, I remember people borrowing this or borrowing that, and vice versa. There was all this. And then don't forget, another thing that nurtured families and was good to help nurture the Catholic faith was the men's and women's sodalities. And that's a thing that we'll be doing on Christian TV, whatever way it'll be managed, a men's and women's sodalities. There would be some that would be taken to it because we'd be passing on the message. And funny enough, I don't hear the message as much as I'd like to hear it from the pulpit or anywhere else for that matter. And I don't hear it. And I don't read it. Well, I read it now sometimes. There's a couple of great writers that I read in the Irish Catholic and the Catholic Voice, and they're good, and they sort of seem to be, they have a great view of things and the way they're able to put it out, and that's a gift. And so I hopefully we'll be doing that. But the fact is that aunts and uncles play a very important role, and they did in my life.
Yeah, you're talking about a gift there. I think the great gift that I had was that I still have four sisters, and I often wonder, I have friends and they have no sisters. And like my world, my views on women are shaped very much so by my four sisters, you know. Um, and I learned so much about women from my four sisters, and it was fantastic. It was a fantastic. It was like the University of Femininity or something. It was fantastic, you know. But
Yeah.
you have a sister, John. I'm not sure if Father Sheehy, do you have any sisters, Father Sean?
Yeah, I have four sisters
Oh wow, so you're like myself.
and one brother, but I have a sister and a brother who died there of cancer a couple of years ago. But yeah,
Oh
so
man, okay.
I grew up with four sisters, and I was the oldest, and actually it was a house run by women, you know, because they had their friends as well. Uh,
Yes.
and yes, it was definitely because one of the commandments was, you must never, under any circumstance, no matter what she does to you, you must never hit or hurt a woman.
Yeah,
That was sacred. Now they could do whatever they wanted to us,
that's right.
but don't you dare, hit your sister. Don't you do, I mean, it was a mortal sin, and it gave you a respect, for women as well. That somehow or other, there's a sanctity there. There's a dignity there that must not be undermined and not be disparaged as well.
Yeah, because my friends that don't have any sisters, they growing up with them in the beginning anyway, when we were socializing, you could see the awkwardness they had around women. They didn't know how to behave
Mm,
around young girls, when we were all teenagers and that. Whereas me, it was all very easy because it was very familiar. And
yes.
it was, as I say, it was great to have my four sisters, and I still have them, and I'm very, very lucky. And but it's
Mhm.
nice to know, Father Sean, that you have four sisters too, and that you
Mhm.
had a pretty similar experience to myself. What about you, John?
Mhm.
You have one sister, Anne, is it?
I have, and she's still with us. She's younger than me. I was the eldest, like Father Sean, and in other words, I was the boss, or like that, because I didn't take any lip from anything. Full
Oh,
stop.
oh,
But
John
trying to be
Malone, please.
fair, I just didn't seem to have that gift of when you're the eldest, for some reason or other, that's the way it was, anyways. And but at the end of the day, it's good to have the sisters, and she was a great companion in some ways of growing up and that, and we would have liked to have. Matter of fact, I would have liked to have a few more if it was possible in the family, but it wasn't possible. I would have liked, in your case, where you had four sisters and Father Sean, that's a gift. But then, when you haven't got that kind of thing, then the aunts and uncles fill a great role as well. You couldn't ask for better. And as Father Sean says, you have to keep your mouth closed if you're getting insulted some way or another. But where have you? And it's not too easy, I can tell you, from my point of
Right.
view. I don't seem to have
Very
that
good, very
gift.
good.
But be that as it may, I wouldn't appreciate 100%. And some of my friends, I knew their wives, and you couldn't ask for better. They were very fortunate and
Mhm.
great to visit and all the rest. So this is the beauty of when you were growing up and the way it was. And the friends I have now are all practicing Catholics, and
Yeah.
vast with their faith in that. And these are the sort of friends that have always associated with, thanks be to God and His Blessed Mother, down the years. Because there often there's a phrase that I'll tell you who you are by the friends you keep. And if you
Right.
keep friends that are on the wavelength of Christian outlook and so on and so forth and trying to do their best. And we often have ups and downs. You don't go through life, you don't skate through it. You have difficulties comes your way, whether you like it or not. But the best thing to do is to accept it. And even when I had my little accident in Medjugorje in the church where you normally get healed, I come down and wound up in a wheelchair. But I didn't pass on the remark. I offered it up.
Yeah.
for my own
Yeah.
sins and those that have gone before. So when you have that kind of an attitude, believe it or not, it just gets you through.
Right.
Father,
Nothing knocks you down.
Father Sean, was there anything you'd like to say now? Last words to you, sir?
Yeah.
Our
Last
Father.
words. My last words would be: look, we need to recognize that men and women are different, that both need to appreciate one another and recognize the complementarity that exists between man and woman is created by God. And I also do believe, though, that men are far more appreciated by women than women are by men. But in order for a man to appreciate a woman, he has to be masculine. I think, sadly, today, because of feminism, men have become demasculinized, and have become more effeminate. And women, I think, maybe to make up for that absence, have become more masculine. So you have a total mix-up. I think we need to go back to what God created. Men are men, women are women. They are not the same. But they're created to collaborate and to complement one another. And when that happens, I think, then you will have vibrant homes and you will have vibrant parishes in the church.
Wow, that's very, very, very nice, Father. John Malone, we have a few minutes there. I know I said the last word there to Father Sean. You look as if you want to say something. You have a smile on your face.
Well, I always try to have a smile on my face. That's the way it goes. But suffice to say that Christmas is a very important time, and I was blessed that without it happening, I have a cousin here, and but they don't practice the Catholic faith, so that's a different kettle of fish. But I was invited by out of the blue. A family that I know, Gilson's, and his son Michael was at their wedding, and get on pretty well. But because of people coming married and living in somewhere near about 10 miles from here, maybe 12 or 15. But he invited me and called for me on Christmas Day at about 12:30. And I was there then, and I asked him to drop me home about 7:15 because I had a lovely day and but met a lot of people and quite good, and had a bit of a chat with different ones, and including his wife's mother. She's a teacher, a primary school teacher and a headmistress. And there's jolly of people as you could wish to meet, and you could see the great camaraderie between Michael and his wife, Sarah. And they have a little son called Tommy Peter after his father. There was Tommy, and he's died, and he has two brothers priests. Father's father, and then Peter, a little brother, was killed in an accident Halloween 30 years ago by a man that was under the influence of drunk and a drink and sent home by the Garda sergeant, which was a terrible thing to do. So that's why that son is called Tommy Peter. And so I was asked that, and I met the wife's mother and other ones that was there, and it was a very enjoyable day. It was the blue, and I was going to be quite happy to have it on my own, because
Mhm.
you're not on your own in some ways when you have the man above and you have this attitude with the prayers that I say and one thing or another during the day goes before they can say Jack Robinson. So that's my wish if you have the right attitude, that's Christmas is going to be a very happy time for you.
It's going to
Mhm.
be a very happy time, Father. So look, I suppose we wish all the women in Ireland a happy and a holy Women's Christmas. I think we can all say that. And
We do.
so, Father, do you want to, John? You like to do a blessing at the end of the videos, isn't that correct? Or
I do. I like Father to give a
Yeah.
blessing.
yeah. So, Father, if you want to go
We
ahead,
need
So we give
or
you the
we need
blessing of
blessings.
Aaron. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord let his face shine upon you. May he be gracious to you. In the name of the Father, and of the
Father and
Son,
the
and
Son
Son
of the
and
of
the
the
Holy
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 Spirit.
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 Amen.
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 God
Very,
bless you.
thank you very much. That was brilliant.
Thank you
Welcome.
very much.
I know.
Take
Bye now.
care.